The boardroom felt too bright that morning, too cold. I sat in the third row, watching Richard Hale walk to the front. Everyone knew what this meeting meant. Partnership announcements happen once a year, and this year was supposed to be mine. 12 years I had waited for this moment. 12 years of late nights, saved deals, and fixed disasters. Richard cleared his throat and smiled at the crowd. That practiced corporate smile that never quite reached his eyes. The projector flickered to life behind him. 3 names appeared on the screen in bold letters. Julia Evans, Tom Briggs, Nathan Cole. My name wasn't there. The applause started slowly, then grew louder around me. I clapped too, my hands moving automatically while my brain struggled to process what I was seeing. Julia had been with the firm for only 4 years. 4 years compared to my 12. Richard's eyes found mine across the room. For just a second I saw something flicker there. Not regret or sympathy, something closer to satisfaction. He was enjoying this moment. That's when I understood completely. This wasn't an oversight or a mistake. This was deliberate. This was a message. My name is Mark Rivers, and for 12 years I was the man behind the curtain at Hale and West Consulting. I built the accounts that made the firm millions. I saved deals that everyone else had given up on. I worked weekends, holidays, birthdays. I missed my daughter's soccer games and my anniversary dinners. All because Richard Hale, my mentor and boss, once told me something I believed completely. Loyalty like yours is rare, Mark, he had said, his hand on my shoulder. I'll make sure you're taken care of. I trusted those words. I built my entire career on that promise. But sitting in that boardroom, watching Julia Evans accept congratulations that should have been mine, I realized something important. Richard's loyalty was as fake as his smile. The 12 years I spent building his empire suddenly felt very different, not like an investment in my future, more like a prison sentence I had walked into willingly. The day he denied me partnership, I didn't lose control. I didn't shout or storm out. Instead, I gained something much more valuable: clarity. The walk back to my desk felt endless. The hallway stretched longer than usual, and every step took conscious effort. I could hear laughter floating from the boardroom behind me. Celebration sounds that felt sharp against my ears. My assistant, Kelly, pretended to be busy with her computer when I passed. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She had known before the meeting. They all had. I closed my office door and stood there for a moment, just breathing. My hands were shaking slightly. I sat down and opened my laptop. The screen glowed to life and my inbox exploded with new messages. Congratulations, Julia. So excited for the new partners. Drinks tonight to celebrate. I scrolled through dozens of emails, not one addressed to me, not one acknowledging 12 years of work. At the bottom of my inbox, I found a draft I had written last week. The subject line read Partnership Timeline Discussion. I had never sent it. My cursor hovered over the delete button. The blinking cursor seemed to be waiting for me to make a choice. I thought about Claire, my wife. I thought about the promises Richard made when he hired me. Then I moved the draft to a folder instead. Not yet. 12 years earlier, I was a completely different person. Fresh out of business school, 24 years old, eager to prove myself to the world. Richard Hale had interviewed me personally for the junior analyst position. I remembered sitting across from him in this same building, nervous and hopeful, wearing my best suit. He had seemed impressive then. Confidence. Successful. Everything I wanted to become. You remind me of myself at your age, Richard had said, leaning back in his leather chair. Hungry, smart, loyal. That word came up several times during our conversation. Loyalty. He talked about it like it was the most important quality a person could have, more important than talent or intelligence. This firm is built on loyalty, he explained. We take care of our people and they take care of us. It's a family here, Mark. Family. That word meant something to me. My own family was small, distant. The idea of belonging to something bigger appealed to me deeply. Stay loyal to me, Richard had said, shaking my hand at the end of the interview, and I promise I'll make sure you're taken care of. I believed him completely. The first 2 years passed in a blur of hard work and success. I arrived at the office before everyone else and left long after they went home. When other analysts complained about the workload, I volunteered for more. I learned everything I could about the company, the clients, the industry. Richard noticed my dedication quickly. He started giving me bigger projects, more difficult clients, impossible deadlines that other people refused to touch. I delivered every single time without complaint. By my third year, I was handling accounts that junior analysts never saw. When the Riverside deal almost collapsed because of a contract dispute, I spent 72 hours straight rebuilding the entire proposal from scratch. Richard presented it to the client himself. They signed immediately and the company made $3 million from that single contract. Richard got a huge bonus. I received a brief email, "Good work on Riverside." That was all. By year 5, people around the office started calling me the fixer. When a deal went bad, they called me. When a client threatened to leave, they called me. When Richard made a mistake that needed cleaning up, they always called me. And I fixed everything, every single time. The warning came during my 8th year with the firm. Dana, a junior analyst who worked on my team, pulled me aside after a morning meeting. She looked nervous, checking over her shoulder before speaking. "Mark, can I talk to you about something?" Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. We went to the coffee shop across the street from the office. Dana stirred her coffee for a long moment before speaking, her spoon clinking against the cup. "You know Richard's grooming Julia for partner, right?" she finally said. I actually laughed out loud. The idea seemed ridiculous. "Julia just started 2 years ago. She's good at what she does, but she's not ready for partnership." Dana's face stayed serious. She didn't laugh with me. "I've seen the emails, Mark. He's introducing her to board members personally, putting her on all the high-profile presentations, taking her to client dinners. It's the same path he took you on years ago." I shook my head firmly. "Dana, I appreciate your concern, but Richard and I have an understanding. He knows what I've done for this company. He knows my value." She looked at me with something like pity in her eyes. "I really hope you're right, Mark." I dismissed the conversation as soon as we walked back. The red flags started appearing in my 9th year, small at first. A client named Mr. Patterson from Westfield Industries called to thank me directly for saving his account. We were in Richard's office when the call came through on speaker. "Mark really went above and beyond on this project," Patterson said, his voice full of genuine appreciation. "You've got a real star on your team, Richard." I waited for Richard to agree to acknowledge the months of work I had put in. Instead, he cut in smoothly before I could respond. "It's all team effort here at the firm, Tom. Mark's just one piece of our excellent system. Everyone contributed to this success." The call ended shortly after. Richard smiled at me across his desk. "Good work on that account, Mark." But something in his tone felt wrong. I noticed my jaw was clenched tight. That night I replayed the conversation over and over in my head. Team effort. I had spent 3 months rebuilding that relationship after Richard insulted Patterson at a conference. I had flown to Chicago 4 times on my own time. I had personally revised the entire contract structure. But according to Richard, it was just team effort. The next week, another client praised my work directly in a meeting. Again, Richard redirected the credit immediately. The real betrayal came during my 11th year. I wasn't supposed to hear what happened. The CEO's office door was slightly open when I walked past. I had come upstairs to drop off a quarterly report. Richard's voice floated into the hallway clearly. "Mark's excellent at execution, but he lacks leadership presence." I stopped walking immediately. My feet froze to the floor. Leadership presence. I had heard that exact phrase before. Years ago, when the board questioned Richard's promotion to senior partner, I had defended him using those precise words. "Richard has the leadership presence we need at this firm." I had believed it completely when I said it. Now Richard was using my own defense against me. The CEO responded, but I couldn't hear the words clearly. I didn't need to hear them. The message was obvious enough. I walked back to the elevator in a complete daze. The report in my hand suddenly felt incredibly heavy. Everything felt heavy. That evening I sat in my car in the parking garage for over an hour. Other employees left around me, their cars starting up and driving away. The garage slowly emptied until I was alone. I sat there in the darkness, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. That night, sleep refused to come. I lay beside Claire, listening to her breathe softly. The bedroom was dark except for the orange glow of streetlights filtering through our curtains. My mind replayed everything on an endless loop. Every promise Richard had made to me, every time I covered for his mistakes, every deal I saved while he took all the credit. The partnership announcement was only 3 months away now. Dana's warning echoed in my head constantly. Julia was being groomed for my position. Richard had called me execution-focused, not leadership material. The patterns became crystal clear suddenly, like someone had turned on a light. I had been useful to Richard, a tool, the reliable fixer who kept his empire running smoothly while he climbed higher and higher. But tools eventually get replaced. At 2:37 in the morning, I slipped quietly out of bed. Claire stirred slightly but didn't wake. I went to my home office and opened my laptop. The screen's bright glow hurt my tired eyes. I created a new folder on my desktop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, then typed 2 words: Project Exit. Inside that folder, I began collecting files methodically. Client contacts I had built personally. Contracts I had negotiated from scratch. The next 3 months were the most careful of my entire career. I kept working hard, but differently now. Every action had a purpose beyond just doing good work. I started having coffee meetings with clients outside the office building, casual conversations that seemed innocent. "How's your family doing, Tom? Tell me about your expansion plans for next year, Catherine." I was building relationships that existed separately from Richard, making connections that belonged to me alone, not the firm. I asked careful questions during these meetings. "If things ever changed for me here, if I went independent, would you consider working with me directly?" The responses shocked me every single time. "In a heartbeat, Mark. You're the only reason we stayed with this firm. We work with you personally, not the company name. You know that." Every client said some version of the same thing. They trusted me, not Richard's firm. That knowledge felt both powerful and dangerous. I documented everything carefully. Every conversation, every promise, every relationship I had built and maintained over 12 years. Richard noticed nothing unusual, or if he did notice something, he didn't show any concern. I attended every meeting with an appropriate smile, laughed at his jokes at the right moments, agreed with his strategies publicly, played the role of loyal employee perfectly. 2 weeks before the partnership announcement, Julia made a critical mistake. We were working late on the Henderson proposal together, just the two of us in the conference room with laptops and coffee cups. She seemed stressed, talking quickly about budget concerns that didn't make sense. "I don't understand why Richard keeps shifting money between different projects," she said, pulling up a complicated spreadsheet. "Look at this. The Riverside account shows completely different numbers in 3 separate reports." I leaned closer to her screen, studying the numbers carefully. My heart rate picked up immediately. "Show me the other reports, Julia." She pulled up 2 more documents on her laptop. The numbers didn't match at all, not even remotely close. Riverside's budget had been inflated in the expansion report by almost 40%. Other accounts showed similar discrepancies when I looked closer. "Julia, where exactly did these reports come from?" My voice sounded tense even to my own ears. "Richard's office. He asked me to compile them all for the big board presentation next month." She looked confused by my sudden intensity. "Is something wrong with them?" I forced myself to appear calm. "No, just checking accuracy. You know how important these presentations are for the firm." But something was very wrong. Richard was cooking the books carefully. That night, I copied everything Julia had shown me, every discrepancy, every inflated number, every document that didn't match reality. I compared actual client payments from our accounting system to the reported revenues in Richard's expansion documents. The gaps were absolutely staggering. Richard had been doing this for at least 2 years, maybe longer. He wasn't stealing money directly. That would be too obvious, too easily caught. Instead, he was inflating profit numbers to make the firm appear more successful than it actually was, to secure expansion funding from outside investors, to make himself look like a business genius. And Julia, completely unknowingly, had just handed me all the evidence. I spent hours that night organizing everything into clear folders, proof that couldn't be disputed or explained away. Every falsified figure, every inflated report, every document that carried Richard's digital signature. This wasn't just personal betrayal anymore. This was actual fraud, real crimes that could destroy careers and possibly lead to prison time. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had changed, smiled at Richard in the hallway. I attended my meetings, answered my emails, but everything had changed. I had leverage now, real power that Richard didn't know existed, and I was going to use it carefully. The partnership announcement played out exactly as I had expected it would. My name wasn't called. Julia was, along with Tom Briggs and Nathan Cole. I clapped with everyone else in that bright, cold boardroom. I smiled at the appropriate moments. I even congratulated Julia personally afterward, shaking her hand firmly. "You've really earned this, Julia," I told her, forcing warmth into my voice. She looked genuinely relieved by my reaction. "Thank you so much, Mark. That means a lot coming from you." Richard watched us from across the room with that satisfied smile on his face. He thought he had won completely. He thought I would accept this quietly and keep being useful, keep fixing his mistakes, keep holding up his empire of carefully constructed lies. I played the part perfectly for 2 more weeks. During those 14 days, I was the absolute model employee, helpful with everyone, positive in meetings, loyal to the firm. Behind the scenes, though, I worked faster than ever before. I contacted Leo, an old friend from business school who had moved into compliance consulting. We met at a bar downtown, far away from anyone who might recognize us. "Hypothetically," I said carefully, sliding a thick folder across the table, "what happens if someone reports falsified revenue under a partner's name?" Leo opened the folder slowly. Leo's eyes widened as he read through the documents I had compiled. Page after page of evidence, clear proof of systematic fraud. "Hypothetically," Leo said slowly, looking up at me, "this person would face an immediate audit, probably a full investigation, possible criminal charges if the amounts are significant enough." He paused, studying my face carefully. "Mark, this isn't hypothetical at all, is it?" I took a long drink from my beer. "Not anymore." Leo closed the folder and tapped it thoughtfully. "What exactly do you need from me?" "I need this reported properly, anonymously, but only after I'm completely gone from the firm." "Gone?" Leo's eyebrows raised. "I'm resigning, but I need to know this gets handled correctly through proper channels." Leo nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his face. "When do you want me to file the report?" 2 weeks from today. I'll send you a message when it's time." We shook hands firmly. The trap was completely set now. 3 days later, Richard called me into his office unexpectedly. "Mark, I need you to review the expansion report before it goes to the board next month." He handed me a thick document bound in a blue folder. "Just sign off on the financial sections. Your usual thoroughness." I flipped through the pages slowly, taking my time. Every single falsified number was there. Every inflated profit figure. Every lie Richard had carefully constructed over 2 years. This was the critical moment, the point where he would try to implicate me in his fraud. If I signed off on these numbers without question, I became part of the crime, a co-conspirator who had approved fraudulent reports. If I refused to sign, Richard would immediately know that I knew about the fraud. He would know I was a threat. I looked up at him calmly. "Of course, Richard. I'll review everything carefully and get it back to you." His smile widened with satisfaction. "I knew I could count on you, Mark. That's why you're so valuable to this firm." That evening, I made detailed copies of everything. The original expansion report with false numbers. My own corrected version showing the actual accurate figures. Every email Richard had sent requesting the inflated numbers. Every document trail he had created. Then I did something clever. I signed off on the report exactly as Richard wanted, but I added a small note in the margin that most people would miss. "Numbers verified against actual client payment records. See attached accurate revenue documentation for comparison." I attached my corrected version to the file. If anyone looked closely later, they would see I had flagged the discrepancies clearly. If Richard noticed my attached documentation, he never mentioned it. He probably thought I was just being extra thorough as usual. He submitted the expansion report to the board with both signatures on it, his name and mine. Both our professional reputations are attached to the document, but only one of us had documented the actual truth. Only one of us had protected himself. The trap was closed now. My resignation letter took me hours to write that night, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted it absolutely perfect, professional, clean, impossible to attack or use against me later. Dear Richard, after 12 years of dedicated service, I am resigning from my position effective 2 weeks from today. I appreciate the opportunities provided and wish the firm continued success in the future. Regards, Mark Rivers. Short and simple. No emotion. No accusations. Nothing he could twist or use against me. I printed it on expensive paper, slid it carefully into a clean envelope. The next morning I requested a meeting with Richard. His assistant scheduled me for noon. He probably wants to discuss his next big project, she said cheerfully. I arrived at his office exactly on time. Richard sat behind his massive desk, eating a salad while typing on his laptop. Mark, come in. What can I do for you today? I closed the door carefully behind me. I sat down across from Richard and placed the envelope on his desk carefully. He looked at it with casual curiosity, then opened it. I watched his face closely as he read the brief message. Confusion appeared first on his features, then disbelief. Then his face flushed with anger. You're resigning. His voice rose slightly, losing its usual calm control. After everything I've done for you over the years, I kept my voice perfectly calm and measured. Yes, it's time for me to move on to new opportunities. Richard stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward. You'll regret this decision, Mark. You think you can make it in this industry without this firm, without my name and reputation behind you. I stood up too, meeting his eyes directly. I already regret something, Richard. I regret believing you cared about loyalty as much as I did. His face turned an even darker shade of red. You're making a huge mistake right now. I smiled slightly. It was a small, sad smile. I already made my mistake 12 years ago when I trusted you. This is me finally fixing it. I turned and walked toward the door. Didn't look back at him. Didn't wait for his response. The door closed softly behind me with a quiet click. That simple sound felt like freedom. My 2-week notice period moved incredibly fast. I worked from home mostly, claiming I was tying up loose ends professionally. Really, I was making careful phone calls. Every single client I had built relationships with over 12 years got a personal call from me. Tom, I wanted to let you know I'm leaving Hale and West. Pause to let that sink in. I'm starting my own independent consulting practice, specialized attention for each client, direct service without the corporate overhead. Every conversation ended the same way. When can I transfer my account to you, Mark? Within 48 hours, 15 major clients had contacted the firm officially. They weren't leaving immediately. They were too smart for that approach. But they scheduled meetings with me personally. They asked about my new company timeline. They requested proposal deadlines. Richard's office completely exploded. I heard about it from Kelly, who called me at home. Mark, Richard is absolutely losing his mind right now. He's screaming about client theft, about lawsuits. What's happening? I'm not stealing anything, Kelly. I'm just giving clients a choice between me and the firm. Well, they're choosing you, every single one. The phone kept ringing constantly. More clients, more meetings, more commitments. By the end of the first week, Richard had lost nearly 30% of his major accounts. 2 days after my last official day at the firm, the shift became impossible to ignore. 3 major clients announced publicly they were moving their business. All of them were coming to Rivers and Associates, my new firm. I heard Richard's reaction through Kelly. He's stealing our clients, someone shouted in a Monday meeting. Richard's face had gone pale. His hands shook when he tried to respond. But everything I did was completely legal. I hadn't violated my employment contract in any way. I hadn't stolen proprietary data or client information. I hadn't badmouthed the firm to anyone. I simply existed as an independent option, and clients chose me overwhelmingly. That hurt Richard more than any revenge possibly could. His empire was cracking, and I had barely started. The best part was that it exposed the truth he had hidden for years. The firm wasn't successful because of Richard's leadership or vision. It was successful because of the relationships I had built, the trust I had earned, the work I had done. Without me holding everything together, the whole structure began to collapse. That same week, something else happened. Leo called me with important news. Mark, I submitted the compliance report anonymously like you asked. And my heart pounded. There's going to be an audit. Internal first, probably external investigation after. The board takes financial fraud very seriously. When does the audit start? I asked Leo. It already has. I heard they pulled all of Richard's financial reports from the last 3 years. I sat back in my chair processing this information. That was incredibly fast. The evidence you provided was crystal clear, Mark. When fraud is this obvious and well documented, they move quickly. The audit moved faster than I had expected. 2 weeks after I officially left, Dana called me. She sounded shaken. Mark, you need to know what's happening here right now. Tell me everything. There are auditors everywhere going through everything. Richard's locked in his office. He looks absolutely terrified. What are they finding? I asked carefully. I don't know all the details, but I heard them mention the expansion report specifically, the one you signed off on. My heart jumped slightly. What about it? They found your attached documentation, the one showing actual numbers versus Richard's reported numbers. Mark, you flagged everything. They know you tried to show the discrepancies. Relief flooded through me completely. Good, good. Mark, you could have been implicated in this. No, Dana, I documented the truth carefully. That's exactly why I'm safe and Richard isn't. She was quiet for a long moment. You planned this, all of it from the beginning. I planned to protect myself. What happens to Richard now is entirely his own doing. 3 days later, the news broke publicly. Firm partner under investigation for financial irregularities. The headline appeared in every major business publication. Richard's name was everywhere suddenly. His professional photo from the company website stared out from articles about fraud and deception. The firm released an official statement quickly. We are cooperating fully with investigators. The actions of one individual do not reflect our company values or practices. One individual. They had already completely thrown Richard away. Julia called me that evening. Her voice sounded shaken and uncertain. Mark, did you know about the fraud before you left? I chose my words very carefully. I suspected something was wrong. That's exactly why I documented accurate numbers separately. Richard's blaming everyone around him. He says you deliberately set him up. I didn't create false numbers, Julia. He did that entirely himself. I just stopped covering for him. She breathed heavily on the other end. I feel so stupid. I helped him without knowing what he was doing. You didn't know the truth. That's not your fault at all. Thank you for not dragging me into this mess. I almost laughed. You were a victim too, Julia. Richard used both of us for his own purposes. The media storm intensified rapidly over the next week. Reporters called my new office constantly. I declined every single interview request. No comment became my standard response to reporters, but the story grew anyway, feeding on itself. More details emerged daily. Richard had falsified revenues for 3 full years. The expansion funding he secured was based entirely on lies. Investors were furious. The firm faced multiple lawsuits. Richard's lawyer released a statement claiming accounting errors and misunderstandings. Nobody believed it for a second. His signature was on everything. His emails had requested the false numbers explicitly. His name appeared on every single fraudulent document. The board demanded his immediate resignation. He refused initially. They fired him very publicly. His biography disappeared from the company website overnight. 12 years of his leadership were completely erased in hours. His remaining clients, the few I hadn't taken, abandoned ship quickly. Some went to competitors, others called me directly. Mark, we heard what happened. Can we talk about working together? My firm grew rapidly. I hired Kelly as my first official employee. Then Dana. Then 3 more analysts. All people Richard had overlooked or undervalued over the years. We worked differently than Hale and West. Every employee got credit for their actual work. Every success was celebrated by name publicly. No more team effort erased. No more stolen credit. When someone did exceptional work, I said so publicly and clearly. I remembered exactly how it felt to be invisible. 6 months after I left Hale and West, I saw Richard at a coffee shop downtown. He looked much older suddenly. Tired, defeated. He didn't see me at first. I could have left quietly, should have probably, but something made me stay. I walked over to his table carefully. Richard, he looked up. His face hardened immediately. Mark. I sat down across from him without being invited. We stared at each other for a long, uncomfortable moment. You destroyed me completely, he said finally. His voice was hollow. I shook my head slowly. No, you destroyed yourself. I just stopped holding your empire together. Those clients were mine. That company was mine. Those clients chose to leave. That company fired you for fraud. I didn't do either of those things. His jaw clenched tightly. You set me up with that expansion report. I documented the truth. You created the lies. There's a significant difference. Semantics. No, Richard, ethics. He looked away, unable to meet my eyes anymore. I made you, gave you everything you have. I leaned forward. You gave me a job. I earned everything else. Every client I saved. Every deal I fixed. Every late night cleaning up your mistakes. I earned all of it. You just took credit. And